The transfer portal is going absolutely berserk, and I missed a couple days due to a laptop problem, but we have plenty of guys who we're going to talk about who have entered the portal and could make a splash and become part of your team. So yeah, we're going to go through 10 guys, who they are, what they bring to the table, and if they have gone anywhere so far. But before we get started, if you're a big fan of college football, be sure to subscribe to the channel, leave a like if you want to support today's video, and let me know what player, team, topic, or situation I can cover next. Now let's go ahead and get started and talk about some big time transfer name. Alright, so our first name we're going to talk about is a player by the name of Christian Fitzpatrick. Going back in time, he came out of Southfield High School in Michigan and was a part of the class of 2020. He ended up having a decent high school career and was a borderline 4-star recruit. He ended up deciding to commit to Louisville, where he played one season with the Cardinals before transferring over to Michigan State. He catched 2 passes in both 2021 and 2022, and then sort of had a breakout in 2023, as he had 18 catches for 252 yards and 1 touchdown. This was not enough though, as he decided to transfer over to Marshall, where he actually became one of their better players, finishing with 34 receptions for 576 yards and 6 touchdowns. Fitzpatrick decided to enter the 2025 transfer portal in the spring window and would commit to Oklahoma State. Oklahoma State needs to replace a couple of their top weapons, and they're desperately trying to get their offense back to normal, so Christian Fitzpatrick will use his last season there and hopefully figure some things out. I promise you guys I'm going to get back to doing some portal abuse players, as I've already covered guys like TJ Finley and Sam Jackson, and Jake Garcia is surely going to be on the list. Going back in time, Garcia was one of the top quarterbacks in the country, having over 2,300 yards and 25 touchdowns as a junior, but again, he transferred to a couple of different high schools and sort of flipped around. After originally being committed to USC, Garcia would end up at Miami, and then from there, he ended up starting a couple of games and had about 1,000 yards and 7 total touchdowns before transferring to Mizzou. Garcia was not able to win the job at Mizzou in 2023, so he transferred to East Carolina. While at East Carolina, he threw a ridiculous amount of interceptions and once again decided to enter the portal again. He has not found a home, and I think he'll have to go down to the FCS level or settle for being a backup. For our third guy on the list, we need to talk about Kennedy Erlacer. Yes, I'll answer the obvious question. He's related to Brian Erlacer. Going back in time, he ended up coming out of Chandler High School in Arizona and was considered just a 3-star recruit. To me, that's a little bit surprising, as you'd expect with his dad and his pedigree for him to be a much bigger name. He also had over 100 tackles and 3 interceptions during his career. I guess that was a little bit underwhelming for 3 years. I don't know. Either way, some sites had him as a 4-star, but Kennedy would decide to commit to Notre Dame and was a part of the class of 2024 and a 3-star. Erlacer would play just a little bit this past season, as he had 7 solo tackles and 1 pass deflection. Obviously, he was not expected to get on the field much, but no one really expected him to enter the portal. That's exactly what would happen, as Erlacer would enter the spring window and has now found his new school at USC. He'll probably get an opportunity to get on the field this year, and if not, be a pivotal piece for the future for them. Who knows, but this is an interesting story. I've got to be honest, I have no idea what Florida State's quarterback plan is in 2024, as I'm not a huge fan of Thomas Castellanos, and their cupboard is pretty bare. Trevor Jackson decided to enter the 2025 transfer portal, and coming out of high school, he was somewhat of a big deal, as he was a 4-star according to 24/7 Sports and the number 26 quarterback, and a 3-star on other sites. Florida State was by far his biggest offer, but he was pretty solid, as he had over 1,800 yards and 17 touchdowns of total offense his senior season, but as I said, he'd go to Florida State and would not end up doing anything. He actually ended up getting on the field against Charleston Southern, but was mostly the scout team quarterback and has decided to enter the portal. I have no idea where he's going, but he's currently listed outside of the top 1,000 in terms of this year's portal, so I bet he'll end up at the FCS level or the Group of 5 level at best. Quarterback is a difficult position to get on the field, and I think Trevor should have just stuck at Florida State, to be honest. We get to our first running back on today's list, and we need to talk about Josh McCrae. Josh McCrae has sort of been blowing up in college football for a little bit of time now, as coming out of Enterprise High School in Alabama, he was considered the number 126 running back in the nation, but actually ended up blowing up pretty early on for Brett Bielema. In McCrae's 4 seasons so far, he ran for 600 yards and 10 touchdowns as a freshman, and then this past year had over 500 yards and 2 touchdowns. Sure, he doesn't have the craziest numbers on the planet, but he's been really solid and has shown major glimpses of potential. He decided to enter the transfer portal, and reportedly, he's probably going to visit Georgia. I have no idea, but that at least means that SEC or big-time programs view him as a good, maybe second option for a team, and that is of high value in college football now. We're going to go ahead and stick at the running back spot, and the next guy we're going to talk about is Rashad Amos. He's got a very interesting career so far, as going back in time, Amos was only a 3-star recruit and was actually the number 62 back coming out of high school and was committed to South Carolina. This was also by way of Sandy Creek High School in Georgia. Amos would end up spending 2 years with Carolina, finishing with just over 100 yards. He would transfer to Miami of Ohio in 2023, and the guy got a huge opportunity. With the Red Hawks, he ran the ball 210 times for 1,075 yards and 13 touchdowns, becoming one of the best group of 5 running backs in the country. But was he just a flash in the pan, or was he a really solid player? The jury was still out, and he decided to commit to Ole Miss in the 2024 portal. Unfortunately, things didn't work out for him, as he only had 9 total carries and 75 yards, and he would decide to move on to Memphis. Amos would commit to the Memphis Tigers, but for some unknown or odd reason, he's back in the portal again after never playing there. So a lot of people are joking that he took a study abroad in Tennessee for a couple of weeks, but now he's in the portal once again, and I guess he'll probably find an opportunity at a group of 5 program. But he had a really terrific 2023 season, so he obviously has potential. Now we truly have one of the most ridiculous players in the 2025 spring window, and that is Tanner Kosol. Coming out of Bloomingdale, Illinois, Kosol was not exactly seen as the next big thing, as he was the number 482 wide receiver in the country and the 103rd best player in the state of Illinois. This was by way of Nazareth Academy, and Ball State and Mike New would take a chance on him. It ended up paying off big time. A guy who wasn't even ranked inside the top 2,600 players in his class would become a star for them. And also, I'm not sure why he wasn't ranked higher. He had over 1,100 yards and 22 touchdowns as a tight end. When he arrived at Ball State, it was sort of a slow start for him, but he got insane by the end of it. He had 35 catches for 373 yards and 7 touchdowns in 2022, and then 34 catches for 3 touchdowns in 2023. 2024 was his incredible performance, as he was almost a John Mackey Award winner, catching 94 passes for 839 yards and 8 touchdowns. He became one of the best tight ends in college football, and instead of going off to the NFL, the 6'7" giant decided to go to Wisconsin. Honestly, that seemed like a perfect fit for him. He'd go to a former Big Ten West school, ball out for a year, and be a first or second round pick. That's at least how I thought it would go. But apparently, according to sources, things did not go well for Tanner while he was there, and in fact, it's been kind of a mess. He reportedly did not want to block, he didn't like some of the words that the coach used, and he already bailed to the portal for this spring and has found a new home in Houston. Tanner will now be playing his college football in the Big 12, and I'm definitely rooting for him and think he's a really solid player, and he's going to get his own video, but definitely there was a weird saga up in Madison these last couple of weeks. I always love it when things go full circle on the channel, as I remember covering Branson Robinson when he committed to Georgia, I think about 4 years ago. Coming out of Germantown High School in Mississippi, Branson was a top 10 running back in the class of 2022, and would end up having a solid couple of years in Athens. Robinson's best season would come in 2022, as he finished with 330 yards and 3 touchdowns. In 2023, he would suffer a knee injury in fall camp, and unfortunately he was not able to get on the field. In 2024, he ended up having 25 carries for 73 yards and 3 touchdowns. Obviously, these were not the numbers you were expecting out of him, and he decided to enter the portal. To me, there's a little bit of an asterisk on all this, because he kind of got jumped on the depth chart, and injuries kind of screwed him. It looks like North Carolina is pursuing him, so I assume he's probably going to have plenty of Power 4 interest, and he'll end up at a Power 4 program. We now get to our first quarterback on the list, and that is going to be Gio Lopez. He ended up coming out of James Clemens High School in the town of Madison, Alabama, and was not exactly seen as the biggest blue-chip quarterback prospect in the world. In fact, he was only the number 63 quarterback and the 1,324th overall player in his high school recruiting class. While he was in high school, he ended up blowing up as a junior with 2,800 yards and 29 touchdowns, but he only had an offer sheet of schools like South Alabama, Charlotte, Fordham, Northern Iowa, and Jacksonville State. He decided to commit to South Alabama, and over the last 2 years, he's been solid. In 2023, he was a backup, finishing with 4 total touchdowns, and then this past year, he ended up having 2,500 yards, 18 touchdowns, and 5 interceptions. Gio Lopez became one of the more interesting players in this year's portal class, and sort of blew up at the group of 5 level, and on top of that, he had nearly 500 yards and 7 touchdowns on the ground. He was sort of a surprise entry into the spring window and has already found his home at North Carolina, where he will battle it out with a Torrey Newkirk, Bryce Baker, and Max Johnson, because Ryan Brown entered the portal, which was weird. Lopez, I bet, will be the front runner for the job, and it'll be interesting to see how he does in Bill Belichick's system in his first year in Chapel Hill. I would say without a doubt, the most shocking transfer portal addition in the spring window to me was Jaden Au. Coming out of both Norco and Bishop Gorman High School, and Au was a 4-star recruit and the number 23 back in the country. He was someone I was super excited to watch, as he was really solid while he was in high school, finishing with over 2,200 yards and 30 touchdowns his senior season. Au would end up arriving at Cal and was really good in his 3 years. He ran for nearly 900 yards and 8 touchdowns as a freshman, broke out with 1,300 yards and 12 touchdowns as a sophomore, and then this past year only had 385 yards and 4 touchdowns. Cal was sort of a dumpster fire, and I guess things are not getting any better. Everybody in the locker room cannot stand Brian Harsin, so Jaden Au decided to enter the portal, and he's already found his next home in Oklahoma. He's going from the ACC to the SEC, which is really weird to say right now, and honestly, I think he's going to be an over 1,000-yard back in the SEC and be an NFL draft prospect. I've always liked Jaden Au, and while I was shocked to see him enter the portal, I kind of like this addition for the Sooners. So yeah, today we talked about 10 more guys who entered the 2025 portal by way of the spring window, and what do you guys think? What do you think of some of these players? Who should I put in part 4? And what other topics should I cover next? Be sure to let me know down below, leave a like if you want to support today's video, subscribe if you're new, and check out one of the videos on the end screen. I hope to see you guys again soon, but until next time, peace.